According to this, Solar City is, well, we have to get the program. I got a call, see what it's like. The program, so you plug it into the computer and then it'll bring it up.
So did you know this has, I don't know, I always know this, but it has a form down,
So we gotta read the form.
and it was way, and I can't hear it. Gina can't hear it. I can't hear it. Anybody like our age or I can't hear it. But like, anybody like my mom got that. You know, it's not fine. But like if you're young, like that's weird. No, you don't.
I'm just saying.
Where's this going?
Like, they hear it.
30 and below. I can hear 30 and above. No, I don't hear a thing. Or should I go 40?
It's actually more like, I can hear it. So you'll have to read, said that Jim was.
Yeah.
Like, I can hear it.
I'll walk around.
Okay, yeah. Josh,
Oh, did it?
it was, yeah.
Leave it up to you.
Wow, that's a first and third.
I mean, that's like,
And like, yeah, people like, oh, yeah.
no, no.
Do you know these where it's pretty
Oh, I'm doing.
One and down.
I'd like to call to order the regular governing board meeting of the Creighton Elementary School District, February 24th, 2015 at 7:11 p.m. And will Miss Eva Masadiego lead us in pledge of allegiance? Please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Let our roll call show that board members Amy McSheffrey, Donna Young, Jean Caskey, and Carl Zergos are present. Absent is Ms. Annette Sexton Ruiz. From Cabinet, Dr. Boyle, our superintendent, is present, and Dr. Wagner is not present. I want to welcome everyone to tonight's board meeting and remind the audience of our request to address board cards that must be completed and submitted to the board secretary if they wish to speak to an agenda item. Our board policy provides for 2 cards. White cards to be submitted in order to speak to an agenda item, and blue cards to be submitted in order to speak during public comments. Policy also states there is a 5-minute maximum time limit per speaker. Due to open meeting law, board members are not allowed to address items that are not on the agenda. If you do not want to address the board but wish to give your comments in writing, you can do so on a goldenrod sheet. All members will receive a copy. Approval of agenda.
Move the governing board approve the agenda as presented.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes. Our approval of minutes.
Move the governing board approve the minutes as submitted.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Public comments, are there any cards? Thank you. Superintendent and board reports, Dr. Boyle.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for your time and interest in attending our governing board meeting this evening. After many years in Creighton School District as a parent, a teacher on assignment, a principal, an assistant soup, and a superintendent for the last 13 years, I've decided, as you all know, to retire, but not retire from the district as a volunteer. So I hope that, because I've been here forever, that I can serve the district in some way after this year. Because of that, we are now in a superintendent search, and I just wanted to share with you the work that the board has done to create a timeline and process for selecting the next superintendent. This Thursday, February 26th, the superintendent position opens and is posted at 5 p.m. On Monday, March 16th, the superintendent position closes. So there are weeks in there that people in the community will have an opportunity to determine whether or not they would serve well as a superintendent in Creighton School District. Subsequent to the position closing on March 25th, there will be an executive session of the board screening candidate applications, and as well as March 26th if needed. And on Friday and Saturday, April 10th and 11th, there will be superintendent interviews. The board believes in community engagement and is very interested in the thoughts of people in the community. So as you know, there's a survey out. We hope that you all will provide some input to the board through surveys, to making sure as school leaders that your staff and your parents and those people in the community have an opportunity to, again, input to the governing board what they think is, what you think is important as far as qualities and qualifications of the next superintendent. So anyway, this is an exciting time for Creighton School District, and we hope that you will all participate in the way you can participate and really provide some information to the board through surveys, through community forums, through the ways that the board will engage you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Boyle. Governing board reports, Amy.
I had the opportunity to visit Excellencia today and read to a couple classrooms for Read Across America Day, and Ms. Berg gave me a brief tour of Excellencia, which was great. I saw a lot of great classrooms, and the kids were awesome. They were very well behaved and very engaged when I was reading. They were real cute, so thank you.
Okay. I too had the privilege of reading at Excellencia this morning to 2 second grade classes, and it was awesome. I call it one of the perks of being on school board. So anyway, I'm glad you were also able to make it. I did want to just, it's a report, I don't know, I think we have a leniency here on this item, but I just wanted to comment for the 4 of us that this is actually only our 4th regular board meeting this year. And I know we've done a lot of work, and I just wanted to share that I think we're coming together as a board in a cohesive way. I appreciate everyone's contributions to date, and I'm really looking forward to amping it up. So thank you. Thanks for being on this journey with me. With that, let's move to our consent agenda.
The governing board approved consent agenda A through C, including policy DE,
D. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Are there any comments? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item A, personnel. This is the expulsion. Would like to make a motion?
Will the governing board approve to expel the reference statement?
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Item 10, business and plant. This is for energy services procurement update. Mr. Walmer.
Mr. President, members of the governing board, good evening. Tonight is an informational item, I believe, about our energy usage and what we're doing to minimize that. This started with a former governing board member sending to us a vendor who has a program, and we heard that, and we then began to look about at all various possibilities. So I'll take through that process, starting with the things that we're currently doing with regards to energy, what we're doing to keep our costs as low as we can and manageable and efficient. So we currently replace anything that is at the end of its life cycle, of course, with the most efficient sort of models that we can get, particularly lighting, air conditioning, and anything else. Power providers, the electric companies, all have outreach programs where they provide information and go through options with us. EMS systems we have in place at 4 schools. EMS systems run your thermostats, things like that, at an efficient level. So, for example, if your school needs to be at operating temperature at 9 o'clock in the morning, what time do you start to have everything come on to have it there so you don't slam your system with high usage, which drives your bill, and they help us manage that kind of stuff. Power down strategies, where in the summer we bunch our programs into as few buildings as possible and shut down the rest. We started doing that 3, maybe 4 years ago, and that did a lot for us. We saved a lot of money doing that. Any monies that we get from rebates goes into a segregated pot, and that's used to purchase further energy efficient equipment. When we built Papago, we got quite a bit of rebate money from that, and that all goes back into the system for more efficient equipment. And anything we can do to educate staff through the power companies and through the maintenance department, we take advantage of those opportunities. So here's a little bit of history of our kilowatt usage by year. So since 2008, we have reduced our power usage by 14.8%. Doing these things on the slide before. So after our meetings with Synergistic, we went to look and see what else is out there. So we used a request for information, which I don't think we've done before, but that's the most broad form of procurement really that we have in formal settings. So it's not a promise to buy anything like a regular bid is. It's just like I said, a request for information. So it allows us to consider really absolutely anything that somebody wants to suggest to us, and you'll see from the responses that that's exactly what happened. Synergistic did not respond to the RFI, but they're included here anyway because it's not a formal process, so they didn't get eliminated for that purpose. So like I said, there was a very broad range of responses, starting with companies like Climate Tech and Synergistic, who actually sort of someone lives on your campus and they're responsible for behaviors, and then there's a guaranteed savings clause in there somewhere. But the downside is that the company takes a good portion of that savings, and also it's typically a longer term deal. And so any innovation that you come up with, you're still going to share those savings with that company. So that's sort of the most extreme kind of response that we got. From there are consultants, folks who will look at your buildings and give you a list of recommendations, and some of them even are in the long-term financing business and will help link you with a finance program or offer it themselves. One solar company responded. One was somebody who comes by periodically, kind of like a pool boy kind of a paradigm, where they come and put their chemical in, and you're supposed to get some savings like that. You know, a regular service every month, every 2 months, or something like that. Contractor consultants who can also do that audit and then do the work themselves. Like Kid Street, sides financing. Yeah, so different combinations of those elements is what we got. Options that we consider but aren't part of that, part of the RFI, would be to allocate funding to have a consultant just come in and write us a plan. So we did have a company do that at Excellencia, because it was critical that school be as efficient as it could be before we put in solar, which is another very long-term deal. And it was necessary by the way the contracts are written that we produce the right amount of power off our solar panels. So that needed to be predictable. We needed to replace the easy stuff at least before we entered into that deal. So we have a little bit of experience with that kind of company. We could allocate funding and hire someone with some experience and put them on our staff. There are districts who do that. There's a couple of districts on the north and west side who got together and share an individual who does behavior interventions and make sure your EMS systems are set correctly, and all that kind of stuff, whatever they can do. Or we could continue the practice that we have of getting what savings we can get and keeping all those savings ourselves. Just a couple of things to consider. The approaches that are based on guaranteed savings, if you troll around on the internet, you can find instances where that has gone bad. Massachusetts Auditor General, their equivalent, issued a report several years ago that lists a lot of things to be careful of. In that particular instance, they noted that the contracts the districts were signing were kind of one-sided and not to the district's advantage. So that's a more complex scheme where some expertise is required. And the approaches that are based on any kind of long-term funding, if you've heard our budget updates, you have to be very careful and be, I don't want to say hesitant to enter into 10 and 20-year deals on repayments that we're not sure how that would work, with our capital budget the way it is, etc. And those are right prepared comments, and we're happy to try and answer any questions and take any feedback.
Yeah, you got a graph. It was like the second or third, and it was like 2011 moving down in usage. Was that when? Well, I'm thinking that was when Abigail was offline. Is that what caused it, or was it something else?
Well, that sure could be. Those initial declines, I'm betting, was the shutdown when we shut down a lot of our facilities over the summer. I remember that year when I did that, I looked at dollars, and we had a significant dollar savings. But I was told, and rightfully so, that it's kilowatt hours we should be looking at. And yeah, I'm sure that year made a difference as well.
No, you're right, you're correct.
I have a question, and it might not be germane, so hopefully you can check me here. But I know the topic here is energy services procurement, but I was watching the education committee meeting online last week in the Arizona House, and I guess there's a bill moving through that would require school to start after Labor Day and end before Memorial Day, with the promise of saving tons of money in energy, but they weren't able to produce any dollar amounts. So I was wondering if you had any idea, like how much more it costs for us in that month of August, or if that's actually, is that a real consideration?
I don't know about the month of August, but when we did the shutdown, we saved in the neighborhood of $100,000 that year. So that was, I don't know how many schools we actually
had,
because we still have programs going on. Something's going on somewhere in the district all the time.
yeah, we had 8 schools shut down at the time. And yes, that little dip there was just before Papago come on. But Scott is correct. It started to decline when we started shut down, the sessions shut down, summer times, and the summer is our biggest hit. And that's where we get the best dollar value. The hotter it gets, the better it is, because like in my day, when I went to school, we had all 3 months off, and then August, that would be a good income factor of energy savings right there. I do have to report every year to the state any energy savings that we do. It is also, that's in statute, that I have to report what Creighton does and how we do it, what our savings are. So we're already in that mode that you were talking about. I haven't heard about that bill yet. I'll have to look into that and see what it was all about.
I've heard of it also.
Yeah.
So if we shut down 8 schools for 2 months and saved $100,000,
But we keep, certain schools are still open for the lunches, even every day during school, not every weekday during the
Well, what happens there is what we try to do is I try to work with principals. We try to select one school to try to put as many curriculum, summer school, 21st century, all that stuff, Parks and Rec in one school. And all the other schools are basically, I would say, almost 95% shut down. One school is still running pretty well full bore. That's where we get our savings.
Okay. Thank you. Curious. Any other question? Great.
Thank you.
All right. Our moving along in our agenda here, under general, is a presentation on scope of research regarding the impact of our student discipline policies and practices. So I want to invite up Ms. Eva Mazadiego, who will introduce herself. And I just wanted to share, just to help frame this, and Eva will tell you more, but she's a third-year teacher, just learning more about school governance and the politics of it. And she took a special interest in our discipline more, because we already had now 2 expulsion cases. So she was going to talk to us a little bit about our policies and do some research on our practices and make recommendations.
Thank you for allowing me this time and for allowing me to come to your school district and learn from your duty. So I'm a teacher, as Carl mentioned, and to begin, I would like to share my story, a little bit of where I come from. So I guess my story begins with my parents. My parents, like a lot of the children we serve, came to the United States of America in search of a better life, and they resided in a small town city, Compton, California. That's where I'm originally from. And quickly, my parents realized that my education wasn't preparing me for college. So by the time I was in middle school, my mother searched for alternative high schools. And because at that moment, my high school, which was literally down the street from my house, was losing their accreditations. So I pretty much was going to graduate high school with my high school diploma. So I went to school, and it took me a light rail, a bus, and 7 blocks. It was an hour and 35 minutes just to commute to high school throughout my high school years. But it made a difference. Here's a picture where I graduated from UC Berkeley with highest honors, and I say that with a lot of pride because it was a really hard journey. And it was all because of my parents, their sacrifices they encountered just so that I could get a better education. So upon graduation, I decided to go into teaching. And I decided to teach because I realized that what made the biggest difference in my life was education. My parents didn't speak English, and I went to a neighborhood or lived in a neighborhood that unfortunately I was the only kid to actually go to college, and what made the biggest difference was where I went to school. So upon that, I decided to apply to Arizona to teach here. That was my number one choice. I made it knowing that when I applied when SB 1070 had gone into effect that year in 2012. And I knew that if I wanted to teach, I needed to teach here. And that's where I'm at. I've been teaching for 3 years now, and I teach 5th grade, and I love it. My kids are amazing. They're smarter than people leading our state politics, so they really are. So yeah, like Carl mentioned, now in my 3rd year, I was really interested. I noticed that as a teacher, the school governing board and our state made a lot of decisions that I didn't have control over as a teacher, right? I was expected to teach certain curriculum, expected to reach specific results, expected my kids to achieve that, but all decisions were being made without my consult, I guess. So I, with the guidance of Carl, I've been working a little bit around policy, and the thing that we're exploring now, the question is, what is the impact of creating school discipline policy? And again, it arises with the current expulsions that we face as a district. And so, research process. So what I've started is pretty much a thorough review of creating district and school policies and practices. So looking at how schools go about implementing discipline policies. So that started last week, and Kelvin has provided me with a lot of amazing information, over 50 pages worth of stuff that I've been reading, analyzing the data, of course. So what is happening in what's happening to our students through this policy, what are schools doing, what are the patterns that we are noticing in terms of suspension, and what is causing suspensions and expulsions. That research is going to be going through in March, and hopefully I will be able to summarize and present my findings to you in late March, in the last board meeting, March 31st. So I have a question for the school, for the governing board. The question is, and as I look through the discipline policy, I questioned some things, and I want to pose the same question, which is, what impact do you expect from your school discipline policy and practice?
Can you tell us what you mean by that?
So, for example, when I first researched, or when I first read through the school board's policy, I noticed some trends or some language in terms of like, how do we go about intervening with our children? What practices are we implementing? So what would you in mind in like this? I mean, some of you are educators. Most of you have experience in education. What would you expect your school discipline policy to look like? How would it be impacting our kids? In what way?
For me, I would say just like I would hope
Yes.
with anybody who's incarcerated, I would hope that it's a more rehabilitative
Yes.
process than punitive,
Mm-hmm.
and that we would acknowledge perhaps a deficit in life skills and role models and try to provide those for our students and try to give them more opportunities for praise than for punishment.
Yes. Thank you, Jeannie. Anyone else?
I agree. I agree too. I think when we were just looking at the language in certain policies, without consideration of the other practices that we have in place, and then it's differentiated school to school a little bit. It did feel a little punitive, the way the language was written. So I told Eva it would be important for us to give direction, and she's going to make recommendations at the end of this, so she can make recommendations to identify gaps or tell us, hey, the impact is exactly what you want it to be.
Okay, that was one of my questions, because the slide before this, on the 31st of March, when you come back, you don't have recommendations listed.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have summarized the findings. Yeah. So what is working and recommendations? Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, and actually, speaking with one of your staff members of behavior intervention, there's a lot of great stuff happening. So there's definitely a disconnect to like what the policy says and what the schools are actually executing, which is really, like Jeannie said, more of a trying to be more holistic with the child instead of punitive and taking a punitive approach.
And I would expect it to be, progressive.
Yes.
First offense, not as much of a consequence as the same thing you're doing for the fourth and fifth time.
Mhm.
Bad consequences.
Progressive, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think what would be helpful too is, like just in a broad sense, like a zero tolerance policy isn't working. It's incarcerating more youth than putting out and helping to become productive citizens. So in the cases where we are facing an expulsion, I think as a board member, I feel way better knowing what happens to the students after they leave us. So I'd like for you to put that into your presentation so we can A, see what we're doing, and B, if there are gaps that we need to pursue.
My question is, how's she going to get the names of the students?
Now, she doesn't need the names of students, and I think we would be able to track these numbers anyway. It would be looking at trends, and not just expulsions, right? But like suspensions, long-term, short-term, breaking that down by gender demographics. Hopefully, we have some statistics on grades. What does this look like from school to school across the district?
There is.
And then what resources are available to help parents navigate a new school if they don't make it here in the rare case. That's what I had in mind.
Yes. And we can speak further to that if I have any questions or throughout this process. I hope to take your input in this. I hope that what I present to you is not the first time you hear on March 31st, but throughout the process.
Yeah, and I'd like to know what impact the SROs have on campus, because we have some schools that have them and some that don't.
Yeah.
And I know the schools that have them might, to begin with, have more problems in this area to have an SRO.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very good question to explore.
And so they might, come here with their problems at such a level in a graph, and they might end up here at the end of the year, where somebody who doesn't have an SRO starting here might end up.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
I think this is great. That's my opinion. I think this is great that you're undertaking this.
Yeah, I'm excited to read and learn and present to you and learning about. So thank you very much for allowing me to write.
Thanks for partnering with us, Eva.
Oh, well, thanks for guiding and mentoring me.
Okay. Moving along, we have our discussion and consideration of governing board goals. We introduced these 2 weeks ago, and we agreed we'd bring them back tonight to look at them one more time and hopefully, in my opinion, hopefully adopt them. So they should be, Hilda, would you, are those on the screen as well? If not, in board docs.
Definitely coming on board. I think I might have to go on the other side.
Yeah. And I have them in board docs. Oh, you have to go over there. Got it. If you would, Hilda, put it at, we'll start with the proposed vision statement. We just have to put it in then. While she gets that set up for the audience, I was hoping we can maybe just get some holistic point of view and then.
So I have a question. I mean, do we want to consider tabling this since we don't have all 5 members here? If that's something we want everyone to be on board with?
Well, I feel, A, with recognizing that there are no board members that have authority, it's the board that makes decisions. We do have a quorum, so I feel strongly about moving forward. I think it's going to be hard to try and get all 5 for big decisions throughout the next 2 to 4 years. So I would propose we still move forward.
I have no problems, just go for it.
Straight. Great. So I tried summing this up together as an vision. Governing board, the Creighton Governing Board leads the district by actively engaging our diverse stakeholders and working together to create the schools we want. Does that sound good to everyone? Okay. Broke this into 4 goals, which were, Hilda, if you move one more. These were kind of the broad goal areas. And of course, I just wanted to reiterate, like, when we break them down, they're not specifically quantifiable, but it was just to give the board a little more focus and demonstrate to anyone paying attention that these are our values.
I still have a problem.
With
Give me exactly what you mean with professionalism and respect. I mean, a lot of this to me, we don't have your SMART goals, you don't have anything. What's going to happen, I mean, we do have that on the one page that we're going to have annual self-evaluations, but that's the only thing that's set. That's yearly. Everything else, and I can see it coming back with Amy here is going to be working on something. She's going to put her heart and soul into it, and it's part of the proposed goal areas. And we have the annual self-evaluation, and it comes up, and I'm going to say, but Amy, we could have done that because we have no benchmarks. There is nothing there that says, okay, 10%, 40%, 50%. Without that, anyone can say, you did great, but we could do better. And I agree we could do better all the time, but.
So if you go to the next slide, Hilda, like if we look at the first one where I wrote this out as operating effectively with professionalism and respect. So I've had the opportunity to observe maybe 100 school boards, and some of them are professional and respectful, and some of them are not. Some of them are very, they target one another, and they use hateful language, and they undermine one another.
So what's going to happen? I mean, you know, I've seen arguments happen. Well,
so I don't think
I've
they would
never
even.
seen, you know, real drag out fights at school boards. Which we finished like a few years ago. But I've heard of, you know, people where they don't get along, past boards here, where they don't get along and they argue constantly and they really don't like each other. I've seen bullying on this board. I've seen other things, and there's nothing that's going to come down and say, well, you know, what are you going to do? There's no consequence for your actions if you don't follow these.
Well, and I remember when we had this discussion the first time, we talked about how this is not necessarily like for us to judge one another, but for anybody, especially now with the importance of having a superintendent vacancy and searching for a new superintendent, to kind of put our best foot forward, you know, publicly put our best foot forward and say, this is what we value as a board, without necessarily the metrics to go along with it, but to, I mean, people know what the word professionalism and respect mean. So if they were to come to our board and we were name calling or something like that, then we'd really have to reevaluate our actions as a board, and they would see that, you know, I mean, so ideally what we do here matches what we say we want to
But
do.
we belong to ASBA.
Right.
And they have a code of ethics that basically covers this. So if you're going by that, and we're going by the code of ethics, and they go even further on some things that maybe we should adopt. But more or less as a vision for our ethics, but not as our goals.
a goal to me is something I want to achieve.
So there are some people who get on school boards with the purpose and determination to undermine other school board members and superintendents because they have a different vision for that district. I felt like pulling this out and pulling it together would be an opportunity for us to agree that this is something we value. We don't have to. B, it gives us the opportunity, or at least if we say we value this and we don't uphold it, it's not necessarily, we could pull out the ASBA code of ethics, but at the same time, even though they're already adopted in our policy book, we actually have not affirmed those.
Okay, say I had a hidden agenda. I went out to get elected to undermine Dr. Boyle. I really didn't care. So I worked with her for 9 years now. Okay, but say I did that, and that was my goal our hidden agenda was to undermine Dr. Boyle. What is this board going to do?
Yeah, so I would say it's less about that and more of us, I mean, here's the thing, the way it could proceed for weeks or months would be continuing to bring up arguments. But to me, like the word respect is about, let's handle this professional, let's hear all points of view, let's hammer it out, and at the end of the day, we'll take a vote, and wherever the vote falls, that's what we agreed to do. And to me, that would be professional and respectful. I think a board that doesn't operate that way would continue to bring it up and continue trying to work that secret agenda. I would say, like, the reason why I put this, like, if you look at B, like, we have clear expectations and protocols on how we're going to introduce new agenda items, how we're going to discuss how we would handle something if we disagree. And if they're not completely clear yet, then this is like more of an opportunity for us to go in and clarify that.
And I mean.
I don't see enough
I
boards.
guess I'm looking at it like we already do that.
We have,
And if you come to the board, you know, I might not, I'm new tonight. Okay.
yeah,
I
not
might not
the board.
go out, or the two end pieces are getting it. You know, I might not go out with the beer, or, you know, and have a beer with you and, you know, stuff like that. But while I'm sitting here, you are another board member. You're another human being. You will get treated by respect, and I expect the same from you. But that is, like, to me, understood as part
Yeah,
of
that's where
me being on this board to say this is,
But I think, I mean,
you know what I'm saying?
I completely agree, and I think most people who go on governing school boards, I mean, we're not getting paid for this, you know, we're giving up our time, we're even giving up additional time, for, you know, to find a superintendent. But I know people who get onto a board, don't understand the time commitment, don't understand their role in the community, don't understand how to be respectful, and I think that this, so if we were to put this on our website, and somebody's like, you know, I'm free on Tuesdays, maybe I'll join a governing board. At least they could go on there and say, oh, you know, well, maybe these things don't gel with me, or, oh, I don't, you know, like, we can at just at least hold people accountable for these things. And more, well, I mean,
How we're gonna hold them accountable.
okay, you're right, not necessarily hold them accountable, but at least have something to say, well, you know,
probably our expectations.
Right.
So Donna, like, people on this board in the past have not, if you look at D, have not tried to run the district by evaluation of superintendent and affirming the superintendent's role. I think they've tried to be mini superintendents, as ASBA calls it, or they've tried to, like, politic around to get what they wanted out of the district. So to me, like, when I called it, what is it, like, working with professionalism and respect, it was A through D. And, like, one of those examples would be, we're not trying to go around the superintendent, we're not even trying to push the superintendent on one piece, we're actually reaffirming that the way we really motivate the superintendent would be through evaluation. So back to Jeannie's point, like, this also serves, maybe it's not about holding us accountable, but we are trying to front load expectations. This is, I think, helpful to superintendent applicants
It's like,
and folks who want to maybe get on the school board in 2 years.
when you're talking about mini superintendents and that stuff, wouldn't it be the responsibility of the other 4 people on the board to rate in that person? So then you're saying that
Unless
whenever
3 or 4
was
of those,
not as effective as it should have been.
but 3 of those, but if that one person was acting that way and 2 others didn't have that same expectation, then there's the reining in. So it may be not even about holding us accountable, but it's the act of affirming these as our expectation instead of assuming we're going to act this way.
Can you change the name at least then? Because then you're talking about our expectations and front loader, and then you have it listed as goals.
So we can call
How
them,
about expectations? I guess I'm getting a disconnect from the two.
okay,
So a goal to me is something achievable,
okay.
something I'm striving for.
I like
Something
expectation.
that,
Expectations fine.
okay, I have no problems if it's an expectation as opposed to a goal.
Great. Amy?
It's
I'm
semantics,
sorry,
yeah.
it's semantics with me.
Okay, so we'll call these, Hillary, will you note the comments here? So if we want to call these proposed, these would be potential
No, just,
expectations.
creating school board, expectations,
Perfect.
not even proposed, expectations.
Oh, yeah.
Being on the
Oh,
board.
they're only proposed right now. That was like
Oh,
draft.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, yeah, they would be expectations symbols. Okay. So then if we look back, if you go back one slide, Hilda, to the 4 proposed expectations, how does that sit with that new lens?
I'm sorry, say again. I was-
Yeah, so just looking back at these 4, these were formerly called the proposed goal areas, but now they would be proposed expectations. Does that still fit with the board?
Yeah.
Okay.
One thought I had, I think, just in my opinion, number 4 is one of the most important things, and adding, because what 4 covers is students, really. I would like to add the word student in there, maybe. The governing board leads on equity, and well, and putting students first, or something like that. We discussed students specifically in that point.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're not weighting these, but I would like to see that maybe first on the list.
Yeah.
Just as a, you know, because this is also something, I think, when we're questioning the decisions that we make, Donna, for me, it's something I can go back to and look at and say, is this something that's even one of our goals?
Like a cheat sheet. So, Amy, we can look at the sub points, but the governing board leads on student equity. Does that sound like it maybe matches? And then the sub point would say something about students.
Well, just leads on, I want to
Can we-
see,
you want
like,
to put
putting
that first?
students first, you know, that's the thing, that's the number 1 reason
Yeah,
why
so-
we're here,
Well,
right?
it does say.
Hilda, will you go forward to the slide that is called proposed goal 4.
It does, the very first thing it says is the governing board understands the impact of its decisions and district policies on a diverse student body.
And then it says that the decisions are embedded with the student needs orientation.
Right, so
But if you want
it
to,
may not need to be in that very first line, but I think that goal number 4 is like the most important.
yeah, so maybe we can put that as the first expectation.
Yeah.
I agree.
Love it. Yeah, when I put this together for our consideration, it was not with, it's the least important.
Right,
But
yeah.
it was 1, 2, and 3 were things that I think we have been talking about and we're more familiar, but I'd love to leave on student equity, especially that's what the goal, the expectation is about.
And the word student in there, yeah, makes it about students.
Okay.
Too, so.
governing board leads
So-
on student equity,
Yes.
Oh,
And-
okay.
and it's gonna be number 1.
Yes. Yeah. It would, yeah. So while we're on that slide, are any of the subpoints A through E? Any questions there? Okay, seeing none, let's go back to the slide that's called proposed goal 1, which is the operating effectively with professionalism and respect. Under this expectation, how do those 5 points read to all of you?
I still have a little bit of a problem with the,
With just the sub-point being the,
yes, yeah. What's my protocol since I'm a board member? The governing board adopts clear expectations of protocols.
Yeah. So that was my way of calling out, like, if you want to have dialogue on, I mean, some of these things have already been adopted in the clear. Some of them I actually think need more refinement, or we need to just agree on what we're going to do. But it'd be, how do I get something on the agenda? How do I have an opportunity to put in my comments on an issue where, I guess the reason why I put this here, this one in particular, is in the past, there have been previous boards items that I wanted to get my say in. And I didn't need to necessarily win the day, although I always try to do that. But I didn't even feel like I had necessarily an in to make my comments, and I felt cut off without what I felt was an adequate time to present my case. And I don't think that's actually clear yet, but I'd like to get to a place where everyone knows how to access this board, how to get their ideas heard. And like, there is a process. At the end of the day, the board will make a vote, and then the 3-2, 4-1, 5-0, however it lands, it lands. I'd like to keep working to make that clear for all members so that no one feels that they're the odd person out, that this is an equitable and accessible board. I worry about it less, to be honest, as board president, but not in this chair. Sometimes, like, I'm looking at next year when I may or may not be in this seat. I just want to make sure I have an opportunity to advocate my point of view.
But everyone has, you know, the yellow of his cards to put in for.
Yeah, so that's the
So
next.
that's already in place.
So that would be an example of how, like, one protocol to get an agenda on an item on an agenda.
Well, I appreciate this is maybe I think this is what you're talking about, but how you ask, is there any discussion before we vote on something? I think if you did not do that, I would feel, you know, that I wasn't, if I weren't invited, and that's perhaps because I knew.
And I felt that way, Amy, and I actually do that because I'm like, I know Amy's new, and I want to make sure you know you can, and I want you to feel comfortable making your points.
Okay, I guess with B, the way it's written, I'm getting that the protocol is on me as a member. You know, do I invite you over to T3? Or something like that. How about the governing board adopts clear expectations and protocol for governing board meetings rather than members? Because
Oh, yeah.
I'm
Okay.
getting, that's why I'm asking what protocol do I have to abide by? You know, it's a 24-hour, things like that. But the meetings I can understand, but not members.
Fascinating. Yeah, because I thought it was about how the members access the board, but for the meetings or for governing board operations.
That's fine, but you know,
Okay.
it's.
Hilda, will you change members in point B there to operations?
Operations.
The governing board adopts clear expectations and protocols for governing board operations.
Meeting operations.
Well, it's also, I
I
mean,
mean, operations, just because it doesn't necessarily take place in a meeting.
It could be like your homework for evaluation,
and when when you go to schools, when you visit schools, I mean,
But yeah, like as far as how, you know, that we contact her before we just walk into the school, that we, you know, that the four of us don't go out afterwards and start talking about policy and things like that, so.
Okay.
So operations, I think, is more of an umbrella.
Great, thank you. Okay, let's move to the next expectation, which was demonstrating leadership and authentically engaging our diverse community. The first three are holdovers from the previous board. These ones are more measurable ones with As you have noted, there are no consequences, but I think, I won't speak on behalf of the formal board, but I know, what I think I've heard is they felt it was important to make that expectation for board members. I do know that recently in a conversation with Matt Jewett, he said he's now making school visits often. And he's like, it's fascinating what you actually see when you're at schools because you don't, the data doesn't always translate just sitting up here on the dais. So I think it's important that we do it. What do you think?
I'm completely supportive of this, and again, since it's an expectation, it's not like there's not gonna be any punitive action, right? You can't make it to every single school or anything like that. It's more like a recommendation, expectation. It's stronger than a recommendation. Expectation, I like that. I don't have any problem with that.
Yeah, and I would say not everyone who considers running for the seat would assume those are expectations of anyone. So I think it's good to have it listed because I think it is really useful.
Okay, then that will leave us our last expectation here of providing sound legal and fiscal oversight. And as I mentioned 2 weeks ago, I think the reason why I felt this was important is A, yes, that's your job, but I do know that other boards, in reaction to crazy policies or just policies they don't agree with, you know, they've tried to dance around that, and ultimately, sometimes they get caught, and sometimes they haven't been caught yet. And it's important to me that we're doing things. We always consider the impact for students, but we're also not breaking, we're not being, we're not purposefully trying to skirt laws, but we're maybe being creative about it. I just want to make sure that we're resting on sound legal and fiscal oversight. Things we've done for sure. Okay. So altogether, we have new proposed expectations. Any other comments before I make a motion here? I move the governing board approve the proposed governing board expectations as revised and noted through program. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Our next item is the discussion and consideration of a letter or resolution in response to the governor's budget proposal. So Hilda, you might want to leave the screen back up here. So I brought this before the board for a number of reasons, just to make sure we're talking about the information first. We've heard some information back and forth about the governor's proposed budget, specifically the moving or proposal to move the 5% from non-classroom spending into classroom spending. And knowing that I have efficacy to advocate in my own personal capacity, I've done that because I don't think that the budget is a good decision for our kids and for our district. I was also inspired when something about 233 superintendents signed a letter to the governor, including Dr. Boyle, that asked him that basically said this budget doesn't work for us. So without discussing anyone, and purposely leaving folks off a chain with other board members from other districts, brought together a proposal to make a resolution. I don't know that I know other districts are considering it. I don't know that any have done this yet. But this would be a potential resolution that we would adopt that would be presented with other school boards that would hopefully elevate our voice down at the Capitol. So I'll let you read that here. No.
Sorry.
I do want to add that, we were able to get this on the agenda just in the nick of time for posting. The reason why this is urgent and we didn't have this to review in advance, was basically, this is the budget cycle, as Scott shared earlier, like our time to share our points of view are now. So the legislature is making aggressive moves. Superintendents have spoken out. There was ASBA lobby day today at the legislature. There is a letter that school board members can sign individually, not school boards. So this would be, really, if we did this in 2 more weeks at our next meeting, it would be too late. So we don't have to. I just wanted to present this as an option where I thought.
I think it's over, I think it's good. I'm not sure. What is, there's certain times we want to be almost there, and sometimes we don't.
Yeah.
And we want to single ourselves out. If no other governing board does it, it shows. Quite a few years ago, when Dr. Spiller was here, since we have a high population of English learners, we were down in a very low point in our scores. Dr. Spiller figured out, and we were impacted more because of the percentage that we had. False wasn't hit as much. It was just the numbers, the sheer numbers. And she worked the numbers, and the formula put out by the state had an error in it. We went to, the superintendent's board and all that other good stuff. And basically the answer was, we'll change it next year. Because your numbers are gonna go up and you're gonna look a whole lot better. But this year you're failing.
Yeah.
Do we wanna, you understand what I'm getting at?
And to that point, I remember Chris Thomas from the ASBA came to this board to ask us to sign on to a lawsuit that had to do with district funding and disparities between districts or charters. And the promise was that all these districts had been signing on. And then the lawsuit became something to be Creighton because we were the only ones, which was really disappointing. And I don't even remember if there was a resolution to that yet. I don't think there is, but for this one in particular, there at least as of noon today, there were at least 55 individual board members in the Phoenix metro area and northern Arizona. Actually, I think one from Tucson too. There were at least 55 individual governing board members who had signed on to this. It also, we wouldn't be up there all alone because every superintendent, there are 227 districts. I don't know how they came up with 233 superintendents, but 233 superintendents, right? Did that make sense to you? 233 superintendents have already signed. It's a similar effect. They did this as individuals, not representing the districts, but I think it's obviously clear their power in numbers. I haven't been in the governor's office, but from what I understand, their office isn't too pleased when superintendents were doing that. And I know exactly. So I'd like to, so I hear that. I don't know what other unintended consequences there could be. That's why I just put it, I'm strongly urging, but I understand that there could be some hesitancy on this. I've never brought a resolution to the board. I think in my time here, we did one to the Phoenix City Council regarding proposed cuts to after school, to libraries. Libraries?
He was after school.
After school
We had a
programs.
lot of after school.
Yeah.
programs at one point.
But, so like, I don't take this opportunity lightly, but I felt, and this one isn't, you know, some fancy ed reform policy that I may or may not be interested in. This is budget, and we've been cutting not just 1 year, but for many years. In fact, since I joined the board, our budget's been reduced at least 31%, 31%, our M&O budget. So I'm taking a personal stand. I'm urging the board to take a united stand.
I have a feeling, especially as superintendents all over the state calling the governor's office and robocalling their parents and families. I can't imagine we're going to be alone on an island on this one. We may be the first, but I think we're going to see a lot of support in this. That's what I believe. That's my prediction.
Oh, look at me on my rabble rouser. I'm all for it, but I'm like, I want you to consider the
Sure.
consequences.
Any other possible consequences, Dr. Boyle? I know we didn't really talk about this due to the time, but I had saw your name on the other letter.
I think it's important that people know that they are facing strong results.
Any comments?
I'm all for it.
Okay. So, Jeannie, you wanted to insert a comma? I like the insert comment. So,
That's not like,
so Hilda, would you put that on our letterhead and put in the Creighton, obviously, and with that, love to
And will
entertain.
board members be coming in to sign it, or do you just want me to put your name on there? It's like right now it's listed for board signatures, but do you
Yeah.
need to type in your name?
Do we have stamps?
Yeah.
Let's try and get them signed by tomorrow, and if then whatever you don't have, stamp it, and let's
I can come by tomorrow morning.
Well, it won't be like this.
I'm just.
you'll have to stamp my name, I won't be here, but okay.
all right, I move the governing board adopt the resolution to denounce Governor Doug Ducey's proposed executive budget.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Our next item is the discussion and consideration of the governing board statement on Senate Bill 1371. And I'd like to hand that over to Ms. Castine to lead us through this conversation. Let's start with some information, then hear comments, and then
Okay.
talk about what action we might take. Does that
All
work?
right, and I'll do the very best that I can, but I think Mr. Paulos is gonna actually come up and speak to this
Oh, and I
agenda
have a card.
item, so,
And James.
and James, like, if you guys, I mean, I know a bit about it, but I know that Paulos especially has been working diligently on this. But it really has to do with desegregation funding, that, as my understanding is, it came about as a result of a lawsuit back in the 1980s. And there were several districts, and if you go to the library here, there's some paperwork. It's the SB 1371 handout. There it gives you an idea of which districts are affected. So here's the deal. Not every district is affected, but the ones that are, it's a huge chunk of their budgets. Creighton District is not one that's being affected by the cutting of DSEG funding. And it's not as if they're cutting this money and actually redistributing it, like they say they are in the media, that it's all about equity. They're actually just cutting it. So in Phoenix Union, which is what most of our kids feed into, it's a loss of $53 million a year. And it goes towards funding most of our magnet programs. So this does directly affect our kids, even though we might not see a cut in our budget, but the kids of ours who go into the North's IB program where I teach, to Carl Hagen's robotics, which was just nationally recognized. I mean, documentaries were made, movies were made, and all of the other really great magnet programs. It takes away some of those options from our students as they go from 8th grade to high school. And so I didn't really know how to create a resolution, and I looked, and so mine isn't quite as cool as Carl's, but I do have a, on the statement that I provided everybody, it's really just kind of, the first part was really supposed to just be background information, and then the second part is the statement, and if we need to do the whole whereas thing and whatever, we can totally add that. But I just think it's so important for us to show solidarity at a time where we've seen these massive budget cuts, and they're just trying to bleed us dry and trying to destroy public education. I mean, that's the only explanation that I have for all these budget cuts. So, you know, with that, that's why I decided to introduce this today to our governing board, and again, to show support for those districts who will be losing huge funds.
Yeah, so I'll just share a couple thoughts too, and then I'd like to hear from Mr. Diaz and of course Paul Lowe's. But I just, a couple weeks ago when this hit the legislature, Dr. Scribner, superintendent at Phoenix Union, went down to testify. I think it's disguised as equity, but it's about protecting the tax dollar with this DSEG funds. There's misinformation out there.
You know, I'm just wondering, I mean, they're taking money.
Oh, yes.
What, almost $100 million, right, over $100 million, where does it go?
It's a property tax, so it's go back to, it's like an override.
So you're not paying as many taxes, right? What?
Yeah,
Oh,
but it's not something you can vote on. It came about through lawsuit.
And another worry is that we're just inviting another lawsuit, because, you know, this was upheld by the courts. And I think the argument right now is that they're saying that the idea of desegregation didn't work with this funding, and so that's why it's okay for them to take away the money. Is that?
they decided it didn't work.
Well, I mean, you know, like that are some of our schools are still, you know, very much, you know, for lack of a better word, segregated. And so that's one of the things that I heard, and maybe it was on the media, I don't remember, but we could be inviting a whole other lawsuit here by, you know, trying to overturn this or take away that funding. So that's another
There's
concern.
misinformation out there that this only is transportation. We know for sure this is also staff and programs in schools. As Jeannie said, this impacts all of our students for the most part, except for a handful that maybe live north of Camelback, maybe
And if you look
north of Stanford, you know what I mean?
If you look at the second page of the handout here, it said, you know, so it has all the schools listed, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 19 districts statewide. The biggest hit is Tucson with 64 million, and the second biggest is Phoenix Union. And then if you go down to the second page here, I mean, just take a look. 49 myself and 48 of my colleagues, our jobs will be cut.
So it doesn't hit us, but it hits Isaac.
Yeah, so we weren't one of the districts
That's
sued
weird.
in the 80s.
Oh,
We looked a lot different in the 80s than we do now.
Yeah. So before we talk about action, how about we hear from Paul Lowe's, who can give us more information?
And if we have questions, can we ask all questions or no? We just, okay, I just want to make sure.
President Zaragoza, members of the governing board, Dr. Boyle, it's nice to see you again. I'm Paul Lowe's. I live in Tempe, and I'm the president of the Craftsman Teachers Association of Phoenix Union. And I have to tell you, first off, it's an honor to see you folks debating to stand up for our district. These are all of our kids, and that's exactly the point. And as I've said at this very podium, I will stand for you when you do what's right for our kids, because your kids are my kids too. And so it's a heartwarming to me that you're considering doing the same, and I really do appreciate that. Essentially, there are districts that were under court order or still are. Tucson is the one still under court order. Others, the other 17, besides the they agreed some long time ago to adopt special programs so they would keep from being under court order, and that's how they got out of it. Phoenix was under a court order, it no longer is. But what is forgotten in the midst of all this debate is that the court orders were both about racial ethnic balancing, and that's kind of a moot issue now in one way. Now that there are open enrollment policies everywhere, that's no longer really the issue on the table. Maybe it should still be, we are segregated in some ways as ever before, but we don't look at the world that way with our current legislation. Maybe we should, that's another issue. However, the other part of what the DSEG money is all about is providing a quality urban education to kids that would otherwise not get it. And in those districts, it does pay for an awful lot of special programs, whether it's the North High IB, whether it's the robotics program you mentioned, whether it's almost all of our career and technical education courses. Whole schools like Cesar Chavez and Fairfax are basically DSEG schools. And that's just Phoenix Union, with which I am more familiar. But if you look, for example, at Phoenix L, of their 2 A schools, they're their only 2 DSEG schools. And those monies help them attain the success that they've got. All over the state, this would basically boil down to some measurable numbers. If we were to lose the DSEG monies, the districts, the 19 districts that get these, we would somehow see about 3,000 jobs in danger. That's not my first consideration, but imagine what that would do to our current economic recovery. We would not be happy. Phoenix Union would be 700 jobs alone. DSEG dollars at North would be a good example. And my salary when I was at North was half DSEG, but it's not just classroom teachers, it's almost all of our support staff. It's counselors, it's school psychologists, it's social workers. Our kids would be hurting from Window Rock and Holbrook to Buckeye and Tucson. Our kids would be hurting all over. And the argument that we've made here, of course, is that all of our kids are all of our kids. So think about this. No one's ever done these numbers. I guarantee you that APRA, the Arizona Tax Research Association, and Senator Gillespie, whose bill this is, did not talk to 5 educators first. It did not happen. No one had that discussion, because I can tell you that when we say to them, there are tens of thousands of kids every year that go through these programs, after school care programs, before school care programs, some schools, special drama and arts programs for some, band for others, social workers, extra security or just enough security, on and on and on. It is no joke to say that literally tens of thousands and maybe hundreds of thousands of kids benefit from these programs every single year. In the masses, since this has begun in the 80s, we're talking about maybe 1 million or so kids that have benefited from these dollars. And when you think about it, if they were to, let's say, use North High's magnet that you and I, Ms. Castillo, are most familiar with, imagine ending $5 million more additionally every year. What would that do to the classes that are left behind? You're looking at eventually upwards of 40 kids in every class, even in honors classes. It's just not doable. So I'm here to say thank you. I hope you'll do this. I think this is a courageous and wonderful thing for you to consider. I'm really deeply honored. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. Think about these $53 million, that's larger than our entire annual budget. So it's essentially, you know, impacting a student body larger than our entire school district. Mr. Diaz, would you like to share some insight with us? I wanted to recognize James Diaz and the CEA for already doing some work. And I thought that whatever they're doing, we'd like to know what that is and maybe combine efforts or support it or do something different. But that would be helpful.
We became a part of this conversation when some of it started to steer towards the idea of having districts feel resentful or envious or somehow or another of one district getting something and another district getting something else. And to me, from my perspective, this is just essentially a solution looking for a problem, because it's really not something, in my opinion, that is going to be beneficial in any way, shape, or form. It's kind of analogous to in the years past when Career Ladder was taken away. It started with a lawsuit, and the original intention of the lawsuit was try to spread it out among all the districts in the state of Arizona. And surprise, surprise, instead of it spreading out, it just got cut from everybody. So this idea of trying to improve schools in some capacity never really came to fruition with that. In my opinion, this is something similar to that. So for us, our process that we went through, we developed a draft letter we had a system in place where we have contacts on all 9 schools. And when we went through and we discussed this to begin with, our job was to go through and reach out to people at the schools and get their opinions and recognize that not everybody might feel the same way about a particular issue like this. And we drafted a resolution and brought it to our own stewardship council that's representative of all 9 schools, with all the feedback that we were able to receive from people in that time period. And the overwhelming response was, we support this. This is something that we feel is important, similar to the idea of these kids are everybody's kids. And topics of conversation were like, if you're going to go through and cut something like this and you cut career ladder, what's the next step if you're going to go through and start down this line? Are you going to start looking at people's retirement and looking at ASRS? Those fat cat teachers making millions of dollars from retirement. These seem like ridiculous lines of thought, but when you're going through and processing these types of things, this is the rationale. You start off with a budget that seems like it's something that is a good thing to a particular constituency, but they don't, when you dig down into it, it's not something that's really putting money into the classroom. It's taking money from one area and putting it to the other. So it's a messaging issue from our perspective on how you go through and you're trying to deliver the right message for the ultimate goal, which is the success of our students. So overwhelmingly, this was something that was supported by us, and we passed our letter on to the appropriate legislators for their concern as well too. So that's what we want.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Think about that for a few. I think it's also partly that our board hasn't really been one to take positions and be out there. I think small things like this, not that this is a small. I know. And I think we learned a lesson. You're right.
I have the information that you emailed me.
Okay. Do we see that language? Yeah. Got this one. Yeah. I mean, if we can incorporate this language, maybe that's.
Mine was, I looked for examples, I couldn't find a bunch, so mine was kind of thrown together, and it's really maybe a sentence or two. So this is 9 brilliant minds working together, I'll take this one.
Yeah. So for now, Hilda, can you cut and paste that and put that at the top of the statement?
Yeah, and again, the first paragraph was really just, I wanted to provide board members with some background information, so that wasn't really supposed to be part of it.
So you
that
gotta
was
put
just,
it on top.
yeah, just, yes, there you go.
Yeah, don't cut it just yet, just maybe just
Add it.
insert the new language. And let's see here. I think, Jean, you had something at the bottom that was.
That was what I said, Creighton School District in solidarity with several school districts, so it could be
Let me
19
cut this and then I can always paste it back in.
Okay.
throughout the state that will be greatly affected by the possible revocation of desegregation funding opposed to passing the Senate Bill 1471 and any further cutting of educational funding. I just put that under any other
Yeah.
cutting.
Yeah.
So maybe I didn't take that out, but I was just really frustrated with that thing, so.
Yeah. So what if we put Jeannie's paragraph up front and then put CA paragraph second, and then let's try and blend this.
So leave these on 15th first.
And I mean, we know where CA stands. We know where I know where we stand. We didn't actually engage our administrators in this, so do you want it to be the Creighton School District or the governing board? Because I know our resolution was the governing board.
Yeah, I guess it should probably, because I mean, we don't speak for everybody in the district, so that.
Not yet, at least. I mean, we haven't. I just want to recognize, limitations and
Right.
we did go through a process too, like CA did.
Right.
So how about in solidarity with school districts and educators? Take out several.
Sure.
With school districts
Mm-hmm.
and educators.
Oh, yeah, and educators throughout the state. Just comma after state. And I would actually just take out that will be greatly affected, unless you think that's important. Just the statement is, we stand in solidarity and oppose passing of 1371. Yeah. No.
Oppose, yes.
Board opposes.
The word opposes, allows,
Take out by.
Anyone
Take out
apply
by.
to funding?
no, opposes the revocation of desegregation funding.
Okay.
Oh, I see what you're saying, go straight to opposes the passing.
Okay, so I'm gonna take out all of this.
And then, like I said, I don't know, we should probably have this specifically about SB 1371. As much as we don't want them to cut the funding, we already told to see what we thought about that too.
So you want to keep this, you want to cut that piece?
I feel like maybe we should, because I don't want it to get confused with.
Yeah, so maybe just comma something like, so it's by name, like 1371 might not mean as much as, I don't know what the bill is called, but like, cut funds to kids.
I'm sorry, I don't think it's.
What is this bill called, or what is it going by? And
I know it originated in the finance committee, but I don't know. Aside from SB 1371, I don't know what they're calling it.
Okay, so what about comma?
It's like educational equity, like they're.
Okay, so comma, the effort to eliminate desegregation funding.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we want to be more specific from? Do we want to say this from certain schools or not from, it doesn't matter, they know, yeah. And then from there, maybe we could say, I like the part where it says we on James, on the CEA one, where it says we recognize that all of Arizona school children matter to all of Arizona school staff and professionals, and rather than diminish the financial resources of the district.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that, like, yeah.
So do you want me to take out like this?
No, keep it all.
Okay, we want to go.
Oh, you don't want that.
I just feel like, I'm afraid that it's redundant.
If it's with us, our educators in schools.
Okay.
So do we want to remove this?
Yeah, there we go, because we're not speaking for all the schools or anything.
And then scroll down.
See, like I said, I was just background, I don't know that we need to get. Because I got really specific.
So,
with the union, because I-
Even if we like clean up the font and formatting, it's still one pager.
Yeah.
So I would just add a comma though, Jeannie. It's a television in the Senate Finance Committee, comma, and its passage would cause combining two independent clauses there.
Okay, where are you?
After passage.
Comma, no, committee. Yeah. It would cut costs. It would cut $270 million statewide. So it wouldn't.
Right, no,
Yeah, so I'm just making it a little more
We're cut
active.
207 million.
Its
Yeah,
passage
yeah, yeah.
would take out cause,
That was passive voice, why did I?
270 million to be cut
No,
statewide.
no, you should just say you cut, that would be better phrasing.
Yeah.
And its passage would cut 207 million from our already strapped, statewide, from our already strapped educational budgets, yeah, right? Yeah.
Our already strapped education budget. Right. Our-
Yeah.
Yeah, how about its passage would cut? Let's do eliminate there.
Sure. Mhm.
Yeah.
At the top.
Yeah. You get-
Passive voice.
It's, where we put the comma and its passage
Oh, okay.
would eliminate.
Yeah, eliminate, yeah, that's good.
So, the sentence was as well, this money does not affect every district in the state. I think comma, it will impact, I think cut huge chunks of funding. It will impact students, and teachers,
Statewide.
statewide.
And then what else might be removed?
And then just from there to the, I would just take out the details for PUHSD.
Sure, yeah.
And this is, I would keep like PUHSD because it's our feeder district. Let's just spell that out as Phoenix Union High School District. Do we know, it's hard to kind of figure out the number of students impacted totally, but do we have that figure? Because I would leave with that and then talk about the teachers and the programs.
I don't know, like Paul said earlier, there's tens of thousands, but yeah.
So how about this? So we can definitely put them in Phoenix Union High School District. This would directly result in the layoffs or layoffs. It's not really termination though. Or just take out the, in layoffs of about 700 staff, teachers, and administrators. And instead of termination of the magnet programs, they would terminate, they would close, they would end, they would. Yeah, so, and most of the magnet programs would be terminated. Termination, it doesn't matter. And Jean, what's the statewide number? So statewide, this number jumps to 3,000? Is that 3,000?
Staff, 3,000 staff, teachers, administrators.
We need to put something in. This,
Regarding staff magnet, staff magnet.
yeah, so how about this? Things you Amy, you're more than language artist, and you're silent. Finish this up, and it's almost, we see the end of the light in the tunnel here.
Do we want to mention the statewide or do we want to focus on Phoenix Union?
Okay, if you have the layoffs of that 700 staff, teachers, and administrators, statewide, this number jumps to 3,000.
Would you need a comma or a semicolon or the two sentences? I mean, it's just, we already put a comma at the top, which is like in Phoenix Union High School District comma. I wish we just did this on Google Docs and we could all put in our own
Right.
comments.
And then you can talk about the magnet programs after you talk about later on.
Yeah.
So 3,000 should go up to 700.
I see what you're saying.
Yes, I like that.
And then you talk about,
Right.
and this would, yeah. Because you're jumping from one to
Yeah.
another.
So after administrators, maybe put a period and just do a separate sentence.
Yeah, you could statewide, this means, 3,000.
That one sentence is redundant about the magnet programs.
So is that one of the
Yeah, that little
Yeah,
pause
yeah,
there.
yeah. Yeah.
Including, I mean, words. But you, okay, well, you need to put in something in in front of that where it would terminate the magnet programs and these are what the magnet programs include. Or something, get rid of, close down, whatever euphemism you want. That's most, okay, you have it, okay. That's most of the magnet programs, including IB. Might want to put what IB is.
Just, yeah, international recreation, just, yeah.
And then just FYI, the robotics program is private, but it's, the marine biology magnet.
Okay.
That is the.
Oh, that's, I always have to, I think it's BACC. I always have to think this one out. ALEU, wait, LAU. I start typing it and it'll just come up in Google. That's really my secret. That's what I do. So much pressure as an English teacher. That's right. BACCALAUREAT. Yeah.
Okay.
Carl Hayden, what is it, Amy?
It's, the Carl Hayden Marine Biology, Computer and Marine Biology Magnet Program.
There we go.
So it's the first
Computer and Marine Biology Magnet.
and marine biology, biology,
Magnet.
magnet.
Yeah.
And so robotics is in there.
I mean, you could say, I mean, that's where a lot of the robotics kids come from, you know. If you wanted to.
So maybe you can do that.
Take out the national.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
You could say home to the nationally recognized.
Whatever you want to go, sir.
And I'll do that.
Okay,
Any
other,
when is, just a question, does anyone know when this is going to hit the Senate floor, when it's going to hit, does it have to hit? And it has to hit the House of Representatives, right?
Well, I know,
You don't want to keep it on.
I do know what the concern is. I don't think it's been debated on the Senate floor yet. Okay, and I know that the concern is if it does make it out of the Senate and it gets to the House, then it's always, it might as well just be. Right.
that's not the word.
So right now, like, this was where they were last week, was they were just trying to get people to call. Monday, there was like a call-in day to Senator Driggs and Dial. So, they're just trying to mobilize people and get them to be able to share their stories and, you know, contact their senators, et cetera. I think that,
So what are we looking at a timeline for this?
well, I would like to be able to vote on, you know, making this a resolution tonight.
To get it out.
I mean, well,
If we vote, if we pass.
it'll be part of board docs and then maybe other, districts, you know, either otherwise will follow suit. I don't know if anybody actually has put out a resolution publicly like this. So again, we could be drawing attention to ourselves. But when I was at the meeting for, you know, this kind of solidarity meeting, there were so many representatives from school boards there who weren't necessarily affected by this. So I feel, again, I think everybody's just frustrated and tired of all of the budget cuts. And even though this isn't necessarily our money, there are kids, and so everybody's kind of standing together.
I
So,
was wondering about something.
oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
I'm looking at timelines, I'm looking at 10.
I think it's
Well,
I think it's
7:30
fairly
tomorrow.
soon, yeah.
I mean, like, when no one's looking, they'll do a strike all and trying to get stuck. So, like, having it on file, ready to go, is what we need.
So it's really, I'm gonna kind of get it ready and then just kind of hold on to it until we need it, or?
No, let's put our signatures on it, and, then we're ready, and then we can respond as necessary.
Or if you guys decide where you want me to send it, I can send it to.
We have to adopt it first.
Yes, sir. After all that, vote it down. Okay, so I move the governing board, adopt the resolution to oppose, I'm sorry, to, is it in here?
No, it isn't, but here, how about I need the governing board adopt the, proposed governing board statement on Senate Bill 1371. Been moved and seconded. Any further comments?
I can find out when.
Perfect. Yeah, and just communicate that with Hilda.
Okay.
Yeah, great. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion passes. Legislative and political report? Any other, how about this? Anything positive to report?
Oh, wait, well, definitely can do education, but, I'm sorry, but there was like a bill that was about not letting service animals in and for handicapped people or people with disabilities, and so a bunch of people who have service animals came in, even the person who proposed the bill in the first place voted against it, so I thought that was kind of So sometimes they listen to common sense, right? These are people we left, right? Yeah, maybe that's what we do, is just bring all of our kids and students down there. Yeah, I'm scared.
So I'll just add something to look out for with the Common Core / AZ college and career readiness standards. There's a lot of discussion down at the legislature to strip the State Board of Ed of its powers to define standards and measure the standards. Oh, and that impact us too, or just the
Yes, that
Republican
would
caucus?
impact everything,
Okay.
the meeting laws where we could
We
make our.
could go out afterwards.
Yeah. They can make the decisions, that's what they want, make the decisions and come in. I move this, you second, and everyone votes on it, and we don't have a discussion.
Mhm.
Well, let's pay attention to those things because they would A, impact our students and B, impact our operations, and bring back reports timely.
That's what they transfer. Go down the drain.
Okay. On future agenda items, I know we talked about a professional development plan that we would discuss after we adopted goals. We didn't adopt goals, we adopted expectations. But I still would like to talk about the professional development plan, but I'd like to do that maybe the 31st of March. So instead of the 10th, I want that on the 31st.
You're
'Cause I wanted to put-
talking about for the governing board.
For the governing board, the governing board professional development plan. I just wanted to signal to you that I wanted to move it 2 more weeks, or I guess that would be 3, whatever, 3 weeks. So I can put together more resources for us. Anything else to add here? Okay, favorite time?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 8:50.